Not a whole Kenny Kunene tweeting over there on the X platform about his struggling blog that he suddenly is now remembering how to use. Just in case you don't remember, Kenny Kunene was found at the home of Katie Molefe when Katie was being arrested. Okay, the arrest that landed him back in jail after he was out on bail. And then Umkonaze on the 6th of July said, I don't even know what Katie Molefe is doing out. And then surprising in a dramatic arrest. You guys remember that? You know what? Let me play that again because anything Umkonaze said that day is hilarious. Okay,
and unusual activities were observed whilst the team were busy with the operation. These activities included a dispatching of members of the South African Police Service under the command of a senior manager at the head office to go and interrupt the operation that was unfolding. Fortunately, when they arrived there, the members realized that it is indeed a police operation, so they allowed the members to carry out their operation without disturbance. On the 30th December 2024, the ballistic expert issued a ballistic report which linked these firearms not only with the murder of Mr. Swart, but these firearms were linked with a number of high-profile cases. And these cases include very high-profile South African artists that were murdered in Gauteng, which occurred dating back as far as 2021. I'm not going to mention them, but we have them on record. On the 25th of June this year, the project coordinator of the political killings task team is arrested by IDEC. A dramatic arrest. A dramatic arrest. On the 26th of June 2025, the accused, Katiso Molefe, who was arrested by the very same task team, was granted bail. Guess that one went under the radar.
but at the time, you realize we didn't know who these people he was talking about. Is anybody else like me? Anyway, back to Kenny Kunene. Yeah, he's revived the struggling blog. He's revived it so much that the blog doesn't even have advertisers. But you know what? I'm not going to judge. Let's go ahead and read what he says. Exclusive. Umkwanazi's thugs kidnapped me and 3 kids, tortured me for days. You says Katiso Molefe's nephew. Let me tell you something about this struggling article. You guys know I go through a lot of articles, I read a lot of articles, but this one, I haven't read through it. I just know it's going to be a long read, so buckle up. Let's see what exactly is happening on the struggling blog. And if their journalistic and Tontoni is going to produce anything that we can use newsworthy. Okay, so it says exclusive Umkwanazi's thugs kidnapped me and 3 kids. First of all, English requires you to tell us who these 3 kids are. Are they Mkwanazi's thugs kidnapped me and my 3 kids? Who are the 3 kids? They're just some random element that is placed here. Tortured me for days, says Katiso's nephew. Okay, let's get into it. Okay, this is an article on Today O'Clock, 3 September 2025 by Bianca BB Binase. Finally, we know the journalist who he was escorting to Katie Molefe's house for an exclusive interview. The journalist now has a name. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep it moving. A 40-year-old woman who is a relative of. I don't understand. Immediately right there, I've had to go back to the title, okay? Because it says Umkwanazi's thugs kidnapped me and 3 kids, tortured me for days, says Katiso Molefe's nephew. Nephew denotes male. Then immediately in the first sentence, a 40-year-old woman. What do you mean, woman? So is it a nephew or is it a niece? English is not Englishing, but it is okay. You know what? Let me not nitpick. Okay, let's just find out what the story is. A 40-year-old woman who is a relative of the murder accused Katie Molefe has revealed how associates of Umkwananze kidnapped her. And so I'm right. Niece. Can you correct that, Kenny Kunene? It's niece, not nephew. Unless they identify. You know what? I don't want to go into the identify business. Let's go. Let's go. No, but they use her. Okay, you know what? Focus. Let me start again. Let me just focus and start again. A 40-year-old woman who is a relative of a murder accused, Katiso Molefe, has revealed how associates of Umkwanazi kidnapped her and three small children from a restaurant in Soweto, tortured and brutally assaulted her for 2 days in an attempt to extract information about Molefe and another relative they believe is Molefe's accomplice in multiple crimes. The first thing I have to say is children. They really were trying to get information from children? Okay, if you say so. But we continue on. Molefe is charged with his three alleged hitmen. They are charged with the murder of DJ Somebody and his two bodyguards, Sibusiso Mokwena and Sandile Mnyeza. Molefe and his co-accused have also been charged with the murder Aman Swat, who was shot and killed outside his workplace on the 17th of April 2024. It is not the first time officers associated with Umkwanazi have been accused of unlawful conduct. Last month, there were reports of how Umkwanazi's associates allegedly kidnapped a fellow cop to retrieve evidence in the DJ Somebody murder case. Woo! Okay. Captain Idumeng Mahotlo, a senior SAPS ballistics expert, was allegedly held hostage in January by rogue Special Task Force operators to obtain crucial evidence at the police's Silverton Forensics Laboratory. The alleged incident detailed in a sworn statement by IPID in a sworn statement for IPID investigation is set to be examined at the hearings in the MANHUNT Commission of Inquiry starting soon. Now, a Soweto woman, Ulebo Molefe, who is Katiso Molefe's late sister's daughter, okay, exclusively told African News Global how on the 16th of December 2024, rogue Special Task Force operators associated with Umkwanazi kidnapped her from a restaurant at Maponya Mall, Soweto, where she was having lunch with her three nieces aged 8, 14, and 15. While we were having lunch around 3 p.m., I received a call from a man who identified himself as police officer Utsepo Masheko. He requested to have a 10-minute meeting and said he would come and meet me wherever I was. I agreed and told him that I was with my kids. He said he didn't mind meeting me in the presence of the kids. I then gave him the name of the restaurant where we were, and within minutes, he was there, accompanied by two other men in private clothes who he introduced as police officers. Lebo said the officers were then joined five more. Whew, guys, the English. Let me try again. Lebo said the officers were then joined by five other officers who were also in private clothes. I've just had to reword that. They called me outside where he demanded to have a look at my phone. I gave it to them, and after going through my phone, why would you just hand over your phone? Do they have a search warrant? Do they have a section 205? Well, why would you just hand over your phone? I don't even understand. Anyway, I gave it to them, and after going through my phone, the officer who identified himself as Tsepo asked me the whereabouts of my younger brother, Ulaki Molefe. I told them I did not know where he was. They then became hostile and threatened me that if I didn't tell them where Lucky was, hell was going to break loose. When I insisted that I was being honest, they grabbed me and took me and my three kids to their car and told us they were taking us to Moroka Police Station. However, instead of driving to Moroka Police Station, they took the highway, and when I asked where they were taking us, they ordered me to keep quiet. They continued driving until we reached the Malder's Drift police station in the West Rand. At this stage, the children were extremely traumatized and crying hysterically, but the officers didn't care, and one officer even slapped my 15-year-old niece in the face. At Malder's Drift police station, the officers took me and the kids to a room and kept telling me that I was in serious trouble unless I told them the truth. I asked the officers for permission to call a lawyer, however, my request was turned down. They then took the kids to another room and continued to ask me about Lucky's whereabouts. When I insisted that I didn't know where Lucky was, the officers became aggressive and took a blanket from a drawer, spread it on the floor, and ordered me to lie in it. Let's continue. So Lebo said the officers then wrapped her with this blanket and strangled her. As I was screaming, they took out a plastic bag out of a drawer and put it over my head, suffocating me. This torture continued until late in the evening when one of the officers called my brother, MPHUMALANGA Molefe, and told him that he must meet them at Moroka police station in Soweto, where he would hand over the kids and my car to him. They then drove the kids to Moroka police station, where I later learned they handed over the kids and my car to my brother, MPHUMALANGA Molefe. Like, why would they keep a woman and let MPHUMALANGA leave with the kids? Like, anyway, we're not here to judge. Let's listen to the story. We'll probably get to understand it as we continue. Make sure you continue listening because it's long, okay? And I'm trying my best. While my torture and interrogation at the police station continued, somebody at the police station, oh my God, and the writing skills are so awful. Okay. While my torture and interrogation at the police station continued, somebody at the police station, I guess it was the police officer, heard my loud screams and asked the officers who were torturing me to stop. They then stopped by continuing by They then stopped but continued asking me about Lucky's whereabouts. Why didn't they ask the other brother where Lucky was? Why does the other brother get to just come and pick up the car and the girls? Why is he the lucky brother? Why are you the one being tortured? These are the questions I have. Why didn't this journalist ask these questions? Anyway, let's continue. I then said to them he might be at my grandmother's house in Katlehong. The time was about 10:30 p.m. when the officers said to me I should take them to my grandmother's house in um Vosloris. I was no was yeah. I was then told to get into a car with two officers who identified themselves as Umbele and Sitole. We were followed by two more vehicles, a Toyota SUV with four males and a BMW X3 with two males. We drove to my grandmother's house in Katlehong, where we found my grandmother, Umeri Moloi, my aunt Buleng Moloi, and my cousin Itumeng Moloi, and his girlfriend, and my other cousin Pomolo Moloi. I was told to go back to the car, and 5 minutes later, I saw the police coming back to the car with Ufana, who had his hands tied behind his back. Whew. We were then taken to Tohoza police station, where I remained in the car. While some officers took Fana into the police station, the police returned to the car and another officer aggressively pulled me out of the car and took me to another car. Guys, there's so many cars. Okay. Wow. This is a movie. Okay. I fell down before entering the car, and while I was on the ground, the officer took out a taser and used it all over my body. There is a picture attached of taserness. I'm trying to just make sense of which body part this is. I don't even understand this picture. I'll see if I can post it, YouTube and its rules. Wow. Lebo added that two other officers then oh, oh, then spread her legs while the one with the taser placed it on her private parts. Ooh, I'm gonna put a disclaimer on this video. Whoa, 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 whoa. The pain was so unbearable and I was kicking and screaming. The officers continued assaulting me, hitting me with fists until I lost one tooth. But there's no picture of her without a tooth. Until I lost one tooth, while the one with a taser continued using the device all over my body. The beating and the torture continued for a long time. I had more than 60 burn marks and multiple bruises. To be honest, the picture that is shared here is very, very brutal. The only reason why it's confusing for me is I don't know what body part this is. Like, is this a hand? Is this a bag? If this is a person not wearing a shirt, is it a woman? Because then the anatomy is not making sense to me. That's why I'm confused. Anyway, it's Kenny Kunene's website. It's kind of I guess it's the bare minimum that they do over there. So it is what it is. I just can't make out what this photo is. I'll post it on my Facebook. Go follow me over on Facebook. I'll post it there. I don't think they're as strict as YouTube with these kind of pictures. Ooh, 60 burn marks and multiple bruises. Lebo said they were in Togoza till the early hours of the morning. When did they get to Togoza? I thought they were at Morocco police station. Oh, yeah. Okay, I just scrolled. Yes, they went to the Togoza police station to the early hours of the morning when the officers said they were giving her the last chance to tell them where Lucky was. They told me if I did not tell them the truth, they were going to unalive me. One of the officers went as far as gloating that unaliving is their daily business and that they unalive and get away with it. What? Lebo said out of desperation and fear, she told the officers that Lucky might be in Durban. She said she also asked the officers to contact Katiso Molefe's baby mama, Fundiswa, who stays in Fourways. Okay. I thought he had a wife. I didn't know there was a baby mama as well. We then drove to Fundiswa's house in Fourways. On our way, the police were driving at a very high speed and recklessly on the N3 while it was drizzling. Just before we reached the Marlborough Drive, the driver lost control and the car spun several times. I bumped my head on the roof of the car several times while my hands were still cuffed behind my back. The car then hit the barrier on the side of the road before it came to a stop. Somebody provide these AVL records, okay? She's got a case. If she's in a police car, then it's got AVL records. But hey, if you watch The Sins of Me with trial, you know how fast those documents disappear. The police then took me out of the car and cut off the plastic straps they had tied my hands with and put me in another car that Officer Sitole and Mbele were traveling in. But you said handcuffs. Now they're plastic straps. Okay. While we were waiting for an ambulance to arrive, I asked the officers to take me to the nearest hospital as I had severe pains all over my body and was feeling dizzy. However, they refused and said they could only do this if I had lost a leg or an arm. We then drove to Fundiswa's house in Fourways and we arrived there at about 5 a.m. Fundiswa said to the officers Lucky might be in Standerton in MPHUMALANGA at one of our relatives. They then took Fundiswa to another car and we then drove to Standerton. Wow. When we arrived at my late great grandmother's house in Standerton around 8 a.m., the police opened the gate forcefully with some tool, entered the property, broke the windows and the doors before entering the house. I was still in the car and watching in shock while all this was going on. I do not know what happened in the house, but officers came back and told me there was no one inside the house. There was a car parked inside the yard. Officers wrote the officers wrote down its number plates and found that the car was registered in my other uncle's name, Ronnie Molloy, who also lives in Standerton. They then drove with us to his place, but did not find him at his house. Let me tell you something about the Molefe relatives. Okay, they are never at home. Okay, they cannot be found by the police. So now we're looking for Lucky. Okay, and we're also looking for Uncle Ronnie. We then drove back to Johannesburg and we stopped at the Total Garage on the N3, where all officers had a meeting for over an hour while I was sitting in the car. Lebo said after their meeting, the police officers came back to the car and they drove back with her and Fundiswa to Sakile police station in Standerton. On our arrival at the police station, they went out with Fundiswa. Fundiswa is the baby mama, in case you don't remember. And I was told they were going to take her statement. We then drove to Johannesburg and we arrived at my place in Soweto at about 7:30 p.m. Wow, this is a very long day from lunch. Remember, lunch was around 3 p.m. when they picked her up in Soweto with the kids, took her to Morocco police station, and then they did the invitations, the torturizations. Then they went to the grandmother's house and they didn't find Lucky there. Then they went to the baby mama's house, baby mama of Katiso Molefe's house, and they arrived there at 5 a.m. Lucky still wasn't there. Then they now drove to Mpumalanga, and still Lucky wasn't there. Why are they looking for Lucky? Why is no one telling us why they're looking for Lucky? Anyway, let's continue. I've already started this story. I might as well continue reading all this. Where are they now? Yeah, so it was now 7:30 p.m. the next day, and I asked the officer to give me back my phone, but they refused and said they will give it back to me the next day. However, they never brought back my phone to this day. Oh my goodness. Lebo said the following day, on the 18th of December, I'm telling you, this is how it's written. Okay, I'm going to read it again. Lebo said the following day, on the 18th of December, I went to Clipton Police Station to go and open a case against the officers who kidnapped her. She said a statement was obtained from her, and 2 days later, she received an SMS on her aunt's phone notifying her that the case had been transferred to a relevant investigating. Huh? To a relevant police department for further investigation. A week after this, officers Mbele. Don't play with the saps, okay? A week after this, the officers Mbele and Sitole, they're the guys who were in the car with her, okay, if you remember. A week after this, the officers Mbele and Sitole came to my house in Soweto but did not find me at home. They then went to my boyfriend's house in Protea North, Soweto, in 2 SUVs with several other police officers. They jumped the walls and knocked loudly on the door. I was alone at my boyfriend's home when the cops arrived and I refused to open the door. The officers then left. Why would they leave? They have the means to open the door. But you know what? It's her story. The officers then left, thinking there was no one in the house. Oh, okay, she just pretended not to be there. The next day, they came back and found him home. They told him they were looking for me. He told me he did not know where I was, and they left. I'm literally reading the way it is, okay? Because this is Kenny Kunene's website. I mean, I don't know if anyone is doing any editing because there's just so many errors. Anyway, let's continue. Lebo said in May this year, she received a call from someone who identified herself as the police officer from the IPID who requested to have a meeting with her. We then arranged for a meeting which took place at my house in Soweto. The officer from IPID was accompanied by another officer. They took my statement and a doctor's report. They told me they received a report about the accident that occurred while I was being driven by the police officer on N3, the same in May. That accident was in December and they're only coming to her in May. Wow. The same officers came back to me after 2 weeks and told me they were almost done with their investigation. I haven't heard from them since then. What I went through is the worst thing I've ever gone through in my life. I did not believe that any human being could be such callous towards another human being, especially a woman and children. What I went through with my 3 small nieces is the worst thing any human being can go through. I will never trust any police officer as a result of the cruelty they treated me and my nieces with. I'm also very disappointed with the lack of progress in IPID's investigation into this matter. I'm now left with no option but to take legal action. Girl, you waited too long. December to September? African News Global, that's Kenny Kunene's news company, contacted IPID's officer, but she did not answer her phone. Questions have been sent to IPID and their response will be published once it is received. And that, ladies and gentlemen, brings this long read to an end. I wonder how many minutes long this video is. I don't have any pictures to share. The only pictures I have is like arms. I have arms which are heavily scarred. And then the second one, I truly don't know what body part that is. Like, what is that? Is that a hand? I have no idea. I'm just going to share them to my Facebook. Go ahead on over Mzansi Unfiltered on my Facebook, okay? And then I'm going to share them there and let me know what you see. With that, I'm going to end this video here because I'm exhausted, okay? That was a long read, but of course I had to do it for you because we had to understand the story. So they kidnapped, the title was Mkwanazi's thugs kidnapped me and the 3 kids. How do you know they're Mkwanazi's thugs? because you were in Soweto. Anyway, Katiso Molefe's nephew, who is Lucky, who is not the one that they found. Have they found him? Like, the story is so incomplete. I think we need a part 6. I have so many questions. I'm going to end this video here. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Let's discuss this. Do you believe in the story? Is it a true story? What is going on? Why is Kenny Kunene publishing a story about Katiso Molefe after he was found in a compromising position and then he was asked to stay home by gauging my anyway, let me end this here, okay? I told you we need a part 6 because I just have so many questions around this. With that, I'm going to end this video right here. Remember to like, to comment, to subscribe. I'll catch you, of course, on my next upload. Bye.